This video will contain spoilers from the world and story of Subnautica and Subnautica Below Zero. Please beware. Now, the world of Subnautica hides many interesting things within its depths, from fascinating creatures to amazing biomes. But one thing that we never quite learn enough about, at least in my opinion, are the precursors, and what exactly happened to them with kharaa. Well, with Subnautica Below Zero having more and more content released all the time, I figured let's try going into that game and looking for some extra clues. And well, we don't have to look very far. In Subnautica Below Zero, one can currently find a handful of alien artifacts. These artifacts made by the architects, as the precursors are called by Altera. So today, we're going to be looking through some of them and seeing if we can come to at least some conclusions about the precursors. Now, with that out of the way, get your teleportation console command ready, make sure you have enough oxygen because we're going to be going deep, and let's go. Now, to start us off, let's go through the artifacts individually, and then we're going to see if there are any major conclusions we can draw when we combine them together. So starting us off is the so-dubbed exploration site on the Rocket Island. Now, this is a relatively small device that can be found in one of the caves underneath the island. Now, visually, it doesn't seem any different from a lot of the other equipment we're going to be having on our list today. Seemingly, it is some sort of a station for what I would presume is gathering samples, which would be those glowy boxes that can be found around, and then sending the data from them somewhere else for analysis. Considering the lack of other equipment here, I would think this is a relatively small site that was only deployed here to perhaps investigate some of the plant life or soil. And talking about investigating life, we can move on to something that has been dubbed the fish trap. Now, this is a trap deployed in the tree spires, which was seemingly used to capture smaller fauna and then process it for further study. Now, it's very interesting that something like this would be set up here in Below Zero, but not in the base Subnautica game, and that is something we're going to be coming back to. But once again, even with this device, it seems like it was deployed very quickly and then kinda left there to do its job. And next up on our list is the fossil analysis site, which is a small tech site somewhat similar to the analysis of the ancient skeleton in the base game that is taking a look at a skeleton that is embedded in the seabed below. Now, clearly what we can see from here is that the precursors were really trying all of their options, and if the current animal life on the planet could not provide a solution, they started delving into the past animal life. Now, contrary to some of the other technology, this one looks like it could probably be remotely operated with a lot of fine instruments, kinda like how you might see in some of the more modern surgeries. Considering also the fact that the skeleton isn't fully uncovered, it is possible that this experiment was simply beginning when the outbreak happened and all the precursors had to, well, leave or die. But just as I mentioned before, the precursors were not limiting themselves to studying fauna. And as evident by the greenhouse, we can see that they were also looking into plant life. Here in particular, we can see a device that is using, well, whatever is powering it, to create optimal conditions to grow some of the plants inside. And for those of you with a keen eye, the plants inside are actually leaves of marble melons. Now, considering we haven't seen any of these grow in Sector Zero yet, I think this can to a certain extent prove that there was definitely a solid chain of supplies being sent in between whatever is in the crater and whatever research tech sites were set up in the Sector Zero area. And talking about exhausting all the options of what to look into, when you run out of everything, might as well try to analyze the soil as well, which is seemingly what the ground samples machine is doing in the tree spires. I would assume that this is simply a device that was plopped down here to suck in dirt, then process it with whatever components are on the inside and deposit it into those glowy tubes on the sides, which could then be removed and sent somewhere further for analysis. Of course, it is also possible that those are simply there to power the device and actually have nothing else to do with its internal mechanics. I think this, in combination with everything we've seen so far, really shows that the research going on in Sector Zero wasn't super specific. They were really trying to expand the spectrum and look into all kinds of possible details. Now, do remember that it will be important later. Now, skipping through some of the other stuff, the purpose of which we simply do not know yet, such as, for example, the mysterious obelisk, which seems to be transmitting some sort of a power, and could potentially simply be, well, exactly that, a power transmitter, especially considering that an ion cube can be found next to it. However, there is currently no way to prove that. Same goes for things like the modular monuments, which can be found around the map. Sometimes they seem like they actually have a purpose when they stand by themselves, but then at other times they also just seem to be a part of decoration, so it's not exactly clear whether these actually have any extra purpose. However, something that most definitely does have a purpose is the alien satellite. I mean, looking at it, it definitely resembles Earth's satellites, just with a little bit of a precursor spin to it. Get it? Because it probably spins? However, it is definitely interesting to note that the very tip of it is seemingly pointed. Now, of course, this could simply be a part of the design and it can be some extra device that extends, but it is also theoretically possible that this sort of a device would be constructed with the specific purpose of, well, crashing into the planet, and seemingly this could have been one of the first pieces of precursor technology that ended up making it to the planet. I find this especially likely considering that we see all of the other precursor technology still being, well, mostly functional. All of the terminals are still going and power is still being fed to everything, so I don't exactly see why a satellite would just suddenly come crashing down. And the final piece of the puzzle is the so-called water analyzer, which, well, it presumably does exactly what it sounds like it does. Takes samples of water and then proceeds to push them further for extra data to be extracted from them. Now, with everything we've seen, I think we can start forming some very general theories about all of this equipment. First of all, I think it's very important to note that all of this equipment is very quickly deployable seemingly. If you look at stuff like the water analyzer, it looks like it can very quickly be put back together into a more or less cube form and transported somewhere else. So seemingly, a lot of what has been deployed here was deployed very quickly. Now, comparatively to the first game, there isn't a whole lot of huge extensive structures. I mean, if you consider the first game, we're talking several large bases, the containment platform, everything set up around the Emperor, which leads me to believe that this base here was established before what we can find in the crater. Presumably, when the precursors first arrived to the planet, maybe after sending the satellite in to get some readings on it, it is possible that they landed in Sector 0, and not knowing whether the planet is going to yield anything, they set up all kinds of devices to analyze the soil, the water, the plant life, and the fauna to hopefully find something that could help them combat the bacterium. Once, however, they found the Emperor in the base game, they realized that that is their key to success, so they abandoned most of the projects in here, which is why I can see some of the bases being supposedly caved in and not in the greatest of conditions, and moved most of their resources to the crater, establishing huge bases and creating the whole vent infrastructure around the solitary Emperor just to hopefully extract Enzyme 42 out of it. Now, of course, it is also possible that they simply landed simultaneously in the crater and in Sector 0, set up the same kind of equipment, and then simply packed it back up or expanded on it in the crater once they realized that the Emperors are there. But of course, I know what you're all thinking. I still haven't talked about perhaps the most interesting thing that we've seen so far, which is, yes, the Precursor Statue, and I couldn't get any footage of it because it seemingly isn't in the game anymore. Well, or at least I couldn't find it. And yes, a lot of people have begun theorizing that this could be what the Precursors or the Architects actually looked like. And honestly, it might not be too far from the truth. I don't want to jump to any early conclusions here, despite everything else I've said in the video, but based on what we know about the Architects, this could fit. We do know, based on Below Zero, that they were not bipedal, and we also know that they would tower quite a bit over the regular human being, even though the statue might be a slight exaggeration. Now, on the same note, we do also know that their bodies were probably a combination of biological material and mechanical parts, all of which would, well, mostly fit the description. So it isn't impossible that what we're looking at here is in fact a solid rendering of what these creatures would have looked like. But of course, that is just a theory for now, and until more content is released, there is no exact way to tell. But anyways, with that, I'm gonna end the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed and learned at least something new about the wonderful world of Subnautica Below Zero. If you liked this video, maybe consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. All of those would be very much appreciated. And if there's anything that I missed, or a theory of your own that you would like to cover, make sure to leave those down in the comments as well. I would very much like to read them. Now with that, I'm gonna wish you all a beautiful rest of the day, and I'll see you in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.